the security people are handling that.
Well, let's now turn our focus to, today's show, really. Managing Director of the Nigerian Education Loan Fund, Akintunde Sawyerr, has issued a stern warning to institutions that fail to inform students of loan disbursements made on their behalf, while still demanding payment of institutional fees from the same students. In a statement he personally signed, indicates that recent findings by NELFUND have revealed that some institutions, after receiving students' loan disbursements directly into their account, have neglected notifying the affected students or reflecting the payments in their school fee records, creating unnecessary confusion. Professor Sawyerr emphasized that NELFUND's mission is to expand access to higher education by relieving the financial burden on Nigerian students and their families, in line with the vision of President Bola Tinubu's Renewed Hope agenda. He further called on all institutions to uphold transparency and work collaboratively with the fund in ensuring the efficient delivery of this national mandate. Joining me on the program today is Director General of the National Orientation Agency, Lanre Issa-Onilu. Good to have you join us on the program. Help us make sense of this allegation. In what ways are banks and university officials complicit in this development, that in this mega fraud that is rocking the students' loan scheme?
Yeah, I really didn't get the question. Please, can you take that again?
Yes, I'm asking you to help us make sense of the development. Help us understand exactly, how this operates. In what ways are the academic and financial institutions complicit in this mega fraud that is threatening the very life of NELFUND?
Okay, yeah, thank you very much. It's quite unfortunate. It's supposed to be a simple process, that ought to bring relief to the students, the parents, and even the schools. But what we have realized is that schools will get this disbursement from NELFUND, and for several months later, they will hold on to the money without notifying the student. And then they put pressure on the student to go and still pay before they can write their exams. So you have the fund already paid to the school on behalf of the applicant, and yet you refuse to acknowledge that. And then the students still go through the hardship, of having to tell their parents or guardian to go and look for money. So we discovered that a number of institutions, actually many of them, are involved in this. So they hold on to the money. They charge them some fees, which ought not to happen, even for processing the student loan. There's no way they would be able to do this without some banks conniving with them. This money is not meant to be fixed. It is meant to serve in lieu of the tuition that the students ought to pay. And that's what the student loan is all about. And so in the process of our routine feedback mechanism, because part of our mandate in NOA is to generate feedback for government. And our community orientation and mobilization officers going around and doing their job, found out that this was going on. So the first thing we did, which is the normal way we go about our work, was to engage with the agency concerned, in this case, NELFUND. That is what we have found in the field. What do you know? And it turned out that they are actually aware of this, and they were already taking action on it. So, but we felt it was important for Nigerians to know. It was important for students also to know that this is what is going on. And it was important for the schools to realize that they are being watched. And they are not going to go scot, doing this. We felt the student union, the NANS, and even ASU, have role to play in this. So that is why we came out, with the information. But
so
I
can
assure you that further actions are being taken.
All right, we'll get to the action. So tell us, which financial and academic institutions are complicit? Give us their names.
Well, it's not within our own responsibility as National Orientation Agency to do that. We have turned in what we have to NELFUND, and we are aware that NELFUND is taking further actions on that. Even this morning, I got an information from a parent that reached out to me that his two children since September last year were supposed to have been given, they get the monthly stipends of 20,000 naira, yet the school refused to acknowledge that the tuition had been paid. I contacted NELFUND, and today NELFUND discovered that the money had been remitted since September last year, and the parents are still paying. So we are supplying. But
Mr. Saunilu, very quickly, tell us, what is the name of this school you're talking about here?
The name of who?
The school that you're talking about.
I said we have turned it to NELFUND, and NELFUND is taking action on that. So perhaps you may get all that information from NELFUND. You know, we have our own role, which is to ensure that we get feedback to the relevant institutions of government. We have done
but
that.
You know that when people are aware, then it helps them to know what to do. It helps them to be aware, to be alert, and to know the steps they can actually take to protect themselves.
Yes, I'm sure NELFUND is up to that. Let me tell you what has happened in the last few days since this came to light. First, NELFUND has developed an application now that students can actually track from application to disbursement. So they will know when the money gets to their school. That has been sorted out. NELFUND, as I speak, is putting the anti-corruption agencies on notice. And I'm sure they will not do that without supplying them the details, which is their own responsibility.
All right. And, you know, before you mention that, but I was going to ask you why, you know, it has to be this cumbersome. Why is it that the NELFUND has to communicate to the school and not communicate the same information to the student, because they definitely have their contact details? Why was that not the process before all of this, you know, came to the fore?
Yeah, actually, when the students log into the portal of their school, they will see NELFUND on it. But once the school deny that they have not received it, there is nothing the student, you know, will be able to do if we didn't come across this information and then we're able to raise this alarm. So, but that has been sorted now. And, you know, this is a learning process. It's a new policy. Through implementation, then you begin to see areas where you need to tidy up things. And as that's why I said in the last few days, now there's an application where students can actually know every detail, including the day the money arrives in their school.
Director General of the National Orientation Agency. We'll take a quick break. When we come back, we'll continue the conversation. Please stay with us on the program. Tonight, we're digging beyond the headlines to unravel mysteries surrounding the allegations we're hearing coming from, NELFUND and the National Orientation Agency, accusing some academic and financial institutions of frustrating the student loan fund, the ability of students to get these funds. And my guest is still with me today. Now, let's talk about what happens to the students who applied for these loans. Will they now have to repay government, what they actually did not receive in the first instance?
What I know about the students, the fund takes responsibility for that. So you just have to focus on your study. Your parents don't have to worry about how you are going to get educated. You are able to net out whatever the loan is. So it's a very flexible, very compassionate, student loan. By far more compassionate than what you find in even advanced nations. So you're not expected to pay until you find a paid job. And when you find a paid job, it's just, I think, about 10% or thereabouts that is you're expected to pay, on installment until you are able to net out, whatever you're owing. So it's as straightforward as that,
All right. But talking about the students who are actually affected at this time, who have been frustrated, you were just sharing a story about a particular institution where the fund had been released in September last year. That's about 7 months now. And the students do not even know. For some of them, it's when they get to the portal, they realize that NELFUND has paid for them. What steps can they take at this time?
Yeah, I think it is important that the authorities that have prosecutorial powers go into this and are able to, we have information we can supply, which we have been supplying. And I'm sure they also have the wherewithal to get to the root of all of this and ensure that people are actually made to pay for this particular infraction. And for the students, they don't need to worry any longer. Now they don't even need to bother about whether the school acknowledges or not. They have access and the control is now in their hands. So they can track, from the beginning to the end, and they know. But I can say that for every new thing, there will be itches, and then you continue to improve on it. And I'm sure if this didn't come up, we will not be finding solutions. So I'm sure as we go along, it will get to a state that all these kind of issues will not be anything that we need to worry about any longer.
As a Nigerian, a parent, and considering the position you occupy as Director General of NOA with a great responsibility of, building Nigeria's image, how do you feel about this coming up at this time, about this scheme which many have described as noble?
Yeah, it is so sad. It's quite unfortunate. We are in a country where every time it is about government, you blame government for everything. But now government has put in place a kind of policy that is targeted at relieving people of one of the fundamental cost burden. Education is a fundamental cost burden, and that's the burden the government has lifted, from the citizen. And then it is now the citizen themselves. These institutions are the ones sabotaging the citizens, not even the government. This time is sabotaging ourselves. That's not the kind of country we are looking forward to for all of us to have. But it is not something that is coming as a surprise. That is part of the reason why we came up with the National Values Charter. Our value orientation is very important. The values have been eroded. And until we all know what it takes for us to be citizens of this country, what are the expectations? What are the attributes that we must have? What are the responsibilities that we owe our country and owe ourselves? Until we all understand this, and we all create institutions, which is what the government has approved for NOA, to create institutions of nurturing Nigerians. The duty of care that we have towards ourselves, the accountability, transparency, these are very important, for us as citizens of Nigeria. And that's why our campaign has centered around the question, who is a Nigerian? We must understand that whoever is doing this kind of thing cannot raise his head and say he's a true Nigerian. You are not.
This is a National Value Charter. Talk to us about what you were doing to help everybody to know about this project, to embrace it as Nigerians and represent the country the very way we should.
Yes, we've been on this for about 1.5 years because we have to ensure that all stakeholders in the country make input into this. The document was ready. September last year, it was taken for the Federal Executive Council to take a look in. And by October, we got approval from FEC for it. And in the President's New Year message, it says specifically that it's going to be one of his priorities this year and that it will be unveiled soon. I can assure you that activities are ongoing now towards unveiling the National Value Charter. And to come along with the concept of what our values are also the institutions to nurture Nigerians to be embodiments of these values. And the Federal Executive Council also last year approved 7 institutions of nurturing, where all of us would, if you like, be indoctrinated on what the values that we are supposed to hold dear as Nigerians are going to be taught and learned. So no matter what route you take growing up in this country now, you're going to encounter this nurturing system where you're going to be raised as a Nigerian, and you're going to understand what it means to be a Nigerian, and what are the responsibilities, what are your rights, what are the expectations, that we must find in you. And when you step out of the line, then we can use the parameters that have been set in the National Value Charter, which we call 747, to say you are not a true Nigerian. And then it's like now, you cannot really say somebody is not in Nigeria because there are no parameters. So that is what the National Value Charter is going to take care of. But we don't just want to come up with a document and mount campaigns without creating institutions to nurture ourselves. And that's why I said, thankfully, under this Renew Hope agenda, under President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, the 7 institutions of nurturing have been approved, which includes what happens in our schools, what happens at places of work, at our personal interactions with our fellow citizens, with government, as a political office holder or public officer. All of us are involved in this, and the parameters are being set, and we are going to not just be told, we will be nurtured. And that's what happens in other countries. You have to ensure that you put in place structures to nurture citizens on the values that the country have put in place.
All right. In the past, the concern had been that the NOA was a very quiet, silent, unheard agency, which ideally should be at the forefront of driving change across the country, driving patriotism and all that. But we seem to be hearing some things from the NOA now. What has changed?
Well, we have to thank the president. He said from the word go that this country, unity is important to whatever we want to do. You see, you cannot develop a country when the people are psychologically disconnected from the country. Nigerians are psychologically disconnected from the country. You must provide motivations for Nigerians to begin to love their country. So the president has emphasized this from the beginning, from the get-go. And he has continued to use that analogy that we are all a family in the same building, even though we are in different rooms, but we are a family. And that was part of the reasons why the whole national anthem that actually addresses us, the reality of our existence as a country. Nigeria, we hailed it, our own dear native land, that was brought back to begin to, take realistic steps towards fulfilling this. So all thanks go to the president, who has given us the support, who has ensured that we are able to put this in place. And whatever you are hearing of the National Orientation Agency now, it's all to the credit of Mr. President. But let me also assure you, we have not seen anything. This year is going to be a whole lot different because we have graduated processes and we are, moving at that speed with full support of the federal government.
All right. You spoke about the national anthem. And what if I told you that at the moment, not every Nigerian, first has come to terms with the fact that we're back to the old national anthem. And aside that, not everyone just yet can recite or sing all of the stanzas of that anthem. What do you say about that?
Yeah, I would also say that even the one we were using, the Arise O Come Patriot, it was not every Nigerian who could do that. So this is just barely some 6-7 months, that it came back. And it's part of our responsibility to ensure that Nigerians are able to do this. And it's part of the nurturing process that I mentioned that the FEC approved for us. So we are going to roll out campaign on even the national anthem, not just for people to be able to recite it, but also for people to be able to, understand the letter and the tenet, the principles, the messages, in the lines, of the anthem, so that we all can live our life. You said you want to live in a country where no man is oppressed. That says a lot. It means we all have a responsibility to ensure that nobody is oppressed in this country, whether gender, whether tribe, whether religion, whether anything. So we have a responsibility not just to teach people how to recite the national anthem, but also to understand the tenet, the principles, and to ensure that we live our life in accordance, with that particular word.
It's a good way to leave the conversation. Director General, National Orientation Agency.
This is part of what we are going to deploy very shortly. That the whole of this country will have the national anthem very handy.
All right. We look forward to seeing it. We look forward to seeing it. Perhaps I would have also told you to just take some lines, but that's just fine. Thank you very much for talking to us. Lanre Saonilu is Director General, National Orientation Agency. Thank you again.
My pleasure always.
That is our show today. A repeat broadcast airs at midnight and at 6 a.m. I'm Abosede Adeniwa Adremi. I'll see you again.